Welcome back to My Little Corner. I'm Auntie Kara, and we're going to be continuing with the story of Dr. Dolittle, chapters 17 and 18. Remember when we last left off, there was a little room in a pirate ship they couldn't get into, and they're going to figure out how to do it in this chapter. The 17th chapter, The Ocean Gossips. Right away, an axe was found, and the doctor soon chopped a hole in the door big enough to clamber through. At first, he could see nothing at all. It was so dark inside, so he struck a match. The room was quite small with no window, and the ceiling was low. For furniture, there was only one little stool. All around the room, big barrels stood against the walls, fastened at the bottom so that they wouldn't tumble with the rolling of the ship. Above the barrels, pewter jugs of all sizes hung from wooden pegs. There was a strong, winey smell. And in the middle of the floor sat a little boy about 8 years old, crying bitterly. "I declare, it's the pirates' rum room," said Jip in a whisper. "Yes, very rum," said Gub-Gub. "The smell makes me giddy." The little boy seemed rather frightened to find a man standing there before him and all those animals staring in through the hole in the broken door. But as soon as he saw John Dolittle's face by the light of the match, he stopped crying and got up. "You aren't one of the pirates, are you?" he asked. And when the doctor threw back his head and laughed long and loud, the little boy smiled too and came and took his hand. "You laugh like a friend," he said, "not like a pirate. Could you tell me where my uncle is?" "I'm afraid I can't," said the doctor. "When did you last see him?" "It was the day before yesterday," said the boy. "I and my uncle were out fishing in our little boat when the pirates came and caught us. They sunk our fishing boat and brought us both onto this ship. They told my uncle that they wanted him to be a pirate like them, for he was clever at sailing a ship in all weather. But he said he didn't want to be a pirate because killing people and stealing is no work for a good fisherman to do. Then the leader, Ben Ali, got very angry and gnashed his teeth and said that they would throw my uncle into the sea if he didn't do what they said. They sent me downstairs, and I heard the noise of a fight going on above. And when they let me come up again the next day, my uncle was nowhere to be seen. I asked the pirates where he was, but they wouldn't tell me. I'm very much afraid they threw him into the sea and drowned him." And the little boy began to cry again. "Well, now, wait a minute," said the doctor. "Don't cry. Let's go and have tea in the dining room and we'll talk it over. Maybe your uncle has been quite safe all the time. You don't know that he was drowned, do you? And that's something. Perhaps we can find him for you. First we'll go have tea with strawberry jam, and then we'll see what can be done." All the animals had been standing around listening with great curiosity, and when they had gone into the ship's dining room and were having tea, Dab-Dab came up behind the doctor's chair and whispered, "Ask the porpoises if the boy's uncle was drowned. They'll know." "All right," said the doctor, taking a second piece of bread and jam. "What are those funny clicking noises that you're making with your tongue?" asked the boy. "Oh, I just said a couple of words in duck language," the doctor answered. "This is Dab-Dab, one of my pets." "I didn't know that ducks had a language," said the boy. "Are all these other animals your pets too? What is that strange-looking thing with 2 heads?" "Shh," the doctor whispered. "That is the push-me-pull-you. Don't let him see we're talking about him. He gets so dreadfully embarrassed. Tell me, how did you come to be locked up in that little room?" "The pirates shut me in there when they were going off to steal things from another ship. When I heard someone chopping on the door, I didn't know who it could be. I was very glad to find out it was you. Do you think we'll be able to find my uncle?" "Well, we are going to try very hard," said the doctor. "Now, what was your uncle like to look at?" "Well, he had red hair," the boy answered. "Very red hair, and the picture of an anchor tattooed on his arm. He was a strong man, a kind uncle, and the best sailor in the South Atlantic Ocean. His fishing boat was called the Saucy Sally, a cutter-rigged sloop." "What's a cutter-rigged sloop?" whispered Gub-Gub, turning to Jip. "Shh! That's the kind of ship the man had, said Jip. Keep still, can't you?
Oh, said the pig, is that all? I thought it was something to drink.
So the doctor left the boy to play with the animals in the dining room and went upstairs to look for passing porpoises. And soon a whole school came dancing and jumping through the water on their way to Brazil. When they saw the doctor leaning on the rail of his ship, they came over to see how he was getting on. And the doctor asked them if they had seen anything of a man with red hair and an anchor tattooed on his arm. "Do you mean the master of the Sassy Sally?" asked the porpoises. "Yes," said the doctor, "that's the man. Has he been drowned?" "His fishing sloop was sunk," said the porpoises, "for we saw it lying on the bottom of the sea, but there was nobody inside because we went and looked." "His little nephew is on the ship with me here," said the doctor, "and he is terribly afraid that the pirates threw his uncle into the sea. Would you be so good as to find out for me, for sure, whether he has been drowned or not?" "Oh, he isn't drowned," said the porpoises. "If he were, we would be sure to have heard it from the deep-sea decapods. We hear all the saltwater news. The shellfish call us the ocean gossips. No, tell the little boy we are sorry we do not know where his uncle is, but we are quite certain he hasn't been drowned in the sea." So the doctor ran downstairs with the news and told the nephew, who clapped his hands with happiness, and the push-me-pull-you took the little boy on his back and gave him a ride around the dining room table, while all the other animals followed behind, beating the dish covers with spoons, pretending it was a parade. The 18th chapter, Smells. "Your uncle must be found," said the doctor. "That is the next thing now that we know he wasn't thrown into the sea." Then Dab-Dab came up to him again and whispered, "Ask the eagles to look for the man. No living creature can see better than an eagle. When they are miles high in the air, they can count the ants crawling on the ground. Ask the eagles." So the doctor sent one of the swallows off to get some eagles, and in about an hour the little bird came back with 6 different kinds of eagles: a black eagle, a bald eagle, a fish eagle, a golden eagle, an eagle vulture, and a white-tailed sea eagle, twice as high as the boy they were, each one of them, and they stood on the rail of the ship like round-shouldered soldiers, all in a row, stern and still and stiff, while their great gleaming black eyes shot darting glances here and there and everywhere. Gub-Gub was scared of them and got behind a barrel. He said he felt as though those terrible eyes were looking right inside of him to see what he had stolen for lunch. And the doctor said to the eagles, "A man has been lost, a fisherman with red hair and an anchor marked on his arm. Would you be so kind as to see if you can find him for us? This boy is the man's nephew." Eagles do not talk very much, and all they answered in their husky voices was, "You may be sure that we will do our best for John Dolittle." Then they flew off, and Gub-Gub came out from behind his barrel to see them go. Up and up and up they went, higher and higher and higher still. Then, when the doctor could only just see them, they parted company and started going off all different ways, north, east, south, and west, looking like tiny grains of black sand creeping across the wide blue sky. "My gracious," said Gub-Gub in a hushed voice, "what a sight! I wonder they don't scorch their feathers so near the sun." They were gone a long time, and when they came back it was almost night, and the eagles said to the doctor, "We have searched all the seas and all the countries and all the islands and all the cities and all the villages in this half of the world, but we have failed. In the main street of Gibraltar we saw 3 red hares lying on a wheelbarrow before a baker's door. But they were not the hairs of a man. They were the hairs out of a fur coat. Nowhere on land or water could we see any sign of this boy's uncle, and if we could not see him, then he is not to be seen. For John Dolittle we have done our best." Then the 6 great birds flapped their big wings and flew back to their homes in the mountains and the rocks. "Well," said Dab-Dab after they had gone, "what are we going to do now? The boy's uncle must be found. There's no 2 ways about that. The lad isn't old enough to be knocking around the world by himself. Boys aren't like ducklings. They have to be taken care of till they're quite old."
I wish Chi-Chi were here. He would soon find the man. Good old Chi-Chi. I wonder how he's getting on.
If we only had Polynesia with us, said the White Mouse, she would soon think of a way. Do you remember how she got us all out of the prison the second time? My, but she was a clever one.
I don't think so much of those eagle fellows, said Jip. They're just conceited. They may have very good eyesight and all that, but when you ask them to find a man for you, they can't do it. And they have the cheek to come back and say that nobody else could do it. They're just conceited like that collie and Puddleby. And I don't think a whole lot of those gossipy old porpoises either. All they could tell us was that the man isn't in the sea. We don't want to know where he isn't. We want to know where he is. Oh, don't talk so much, said Gub-Gub. It's easy to talk, but it isn't so easy to find a man when you've got the whole world to hunt for him in. Maybe the fisherman's hair has turned white, worrying about the boy, and that's why the eagles couldn't find him. You don't know everything. You're just talking. You are not doing anything to help yourself. You couldn't find the boy's uncle any more than the eagles could. You couldn't do as well. Couldn't I? Said the dog. That's all you know, you warm piece of bacon. I haven't begun to try yet, have I? You wait and see. Then Jip went to the doctor and said, Ask the boy if he has anything in his pockets that belong to his uncle. Will you please? So the doctor asked him, and the boy showed them a gold ring that he wore on a piece of string around his neck because it was too big for his finger. He said his uncle gave it to him when they saw the pirates coming. Jip smelled the ring and said, That's no good. Ask him if he has anything else that belonged to his uncle. Then the boy took from his pocket a great big red handkerchief and said, This was my uncle's too. As soon as the boy pulled it out, Jip shouted, Snuff! By jingo! Black rappy snuff! Don't you smell it? His uncle took snuff. Ask him, doctor. The doctor questioned the boy again, and he said, Yes, my uncle took a lot of snuff. Fine, said Jip. The man's as good as found. 'Twill be as easy as stealing milk from a kitten. Tell the boy I'll find his uncle for him in less than a week. Let's go back upstairs and see the way the wind is blowing. But it is dark now, said the doctor. You can't find him in the dark. I don't need any light to look for a man who smells of black rappy snuff, said Jip as he climbed the stairs. If the man had a hard smell like string now or hot water, it would be different. But snuff, tut-tut. Does hot water have a smell? Asked the doctor. Certainly it has, said Jip. Hot water smells quite different from cold water. It is warm water or ice that has a really difficult smell. Why, I once followed a man for 10 miles on a dark night by the smell of the hot water he used to shave with, for the poor fellow had no soap. Now, then, let us see which way the wind is blowing. Wind is very important in long-distance smelling. It mustn't be too fierce a wind, and of course it must blow the right way. A nice, steady, damp breeze is the best of all. Ha! The wind is from the north. Then Jip went up to the front of the ship and smelled the wind, and he started muttering to himself. Tar, Spanish onions, kerosene, wet raincoats, crushed laurel leaves, rubber burning, lace curtains being washed, no, my mistake, lace curtains hanging out to dry, and foxes, hundreds of them, cubs, and... Can you really smell all those different things in one wind? Asked the doctor. Why, of course, said Jip, and those are only a few of the easy smells, the strong ones. Any mongrel could smell those with a cold in his head. Wait now, and I'll tell you of the harder scents that are coming on this wind, a few of the dainty ones. The dog shut his eyes tight, poked his nose straight up in the air, and sniffed hard with his mouth half open. For a long time he said nothing. He kept as still as a stone. He hardly seemed to be breathing at all. When at last he began to speak, it sounded almost as if he were singing sadly in a dream. Bricks, he whispered very low, old yellow bricks, crumbling with age in a garden wall, the sweet breath of young cows standing in a mountain stream, the lead roof of a dovecote, or perhaps a granary, with the midday sun on it, black kid gloves lying in a bureau drawer of walnut wood, a dusty road with a horse's drinking trough beneath the sycamores, little mushrooms bursting through the rotting leaves, and
Any parsnips?
asked Gub-Gub. No, said Jip. You always think of things to eat. No parsnips whatsoever, and no snuff. Plenty of pipes and cigarettes and a few cigars, but no snuff. We must wait till the wind changes to the south.
Yes, it's a poor wind, that, said Gub-Gub.
I think you're a fake, Jip. Who ever heard of finding a man in the middle of the ocean just by smell? I told you couldn't do it. Look here, said Jip, getting really angry. You're going to get a bite on the nose in a minute. You needn't think of that just because the doctor won't let us give you what you deserve, that you can be as cheeky as you like.
Stop quarreling, said the doctor. Stop it. Life's too short. Tell me, Jip, where do you think those smells are coming from?
From Devon and Wales, most of them, said Jip. The wind is coming that way.
Well, well, said the doctor. You know that's really quite remarkable, quite. I must make a note of that in my new book. I wonder if you could train me to smell as well as that. But no, perhaps I'm better off the way I am. Enough is as good as a feast, they say. Let's go down to supper. I'm quite hungry.
So am I,
said Gub-Gub. Thank you for joining me today. Next time I'm going to introduce you to our dog named Jip that we named after Dr. Dolittle's dog, and we will also be finishing up the book. So I hope that you'll come back. Make sure you like and subscribe to my page, and we'll be able to share many more stories together.